Hey there, Bren White with the Look Up series. And there are all kinds of reasons for looking up if you want to live a full and happy, joy-filled life. All kinds of reasons. Positive reasons, even in terms of looking into the artistry of God each day, real time, His handiwork, His artwork. But from a negative standpoint, everything that's going on in the earth should motivate us to look up. And I just want to read a quick passage to you out of Psalms chapter 7 in terms of what's going on in the world. We're going to talk a little bit about what we talked about last time and move into new territory as well. But in Psalm chapter 7, verse 14, it says this: "The wicked conceive evil, they are pregnant with trouble, and give birth to lies." This is what evil people do. They lie constantly. And now they're able to multiply, broadcast their lying by many, many millions of times through technology, which is a real overwhelming issue at the moment. David goes on to say, "They dig a deep pit to trap others, then fall into it themselves." This was God speaking through David. "The trouble they make for others backfires on them." This is the truth of God. This is the way evil people operate. They lie constantly. They lie constantly. They're scheming constantly. That's how you know they're evil. They pretend to have credibility. They are not credible. They're speaking lies. They're deceiving you. This has been going on for at least 2 years in terms of the current situation in the world. It's been going on since the Garden of Eden. This is part of the origin of sin, which we've talked about before. Verse 16, "The trouble they make for others backfires on them. The violence they plan falls on their own heads." This is the truth of God. God speaking to you today. And I hope that you hear this and receive this, because if you don't understand these words I just spoke to you, you will never know the truth about what's going on around you in the world right now. You'll never know. So we go to the source. We look up to God. We listen to what God says every day in order to have footing and to stay rational and focused and productive as human beings. This is the way it works. The Word of God goes out. It has a positive effect, and God's will is done by those who look to Him and put Him first. Now, this is what we are told to do by Jesus the Christ, who saves us. We cannot let any other thing get in the way of this top priority, including technology and the evil plans of people in the world who are trying to control the masses through technology. And this was one of the things when I was an undergrad at Purdue University, which was written about quite a bit. There was quite a bit of concern, even at that juncture, about all the development of information technologies into the future as things were miniaturized and came down to the chip and all this was achieved. It was that plus the internet and some other things to do with big data ended up not only providing some advantages through technology, but just like science fiction writers wrote, and George Orwell and other people wrote, it ended up where we're at today, where technology can be a huge trap. And I call it the technology box because what Satan was wanting to do was to put everybody in a box where he controls the information. He controls the parameters. He basically can end up controlling the thinking of the masses. If they're all listening to the content inside that box, and they think that reality is found inside that box. As you know, you can look at your iPhone and you can ask any question you want to a search engine and get some kind of a response, which you think you can count on or it's useful in some way. A lot of times it's not. It's bogus. It's lies. Lies that were inputted, GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. This is the basic fundamental reality with all information technology. Whatever you put in, however you design it, that's what you're going to get out of it. And so if you're going for some kind of negative result, a controlling result, you're in big trouble, and the people who go along with you using the technology for convenience are also in trouble. So this is a real challenge right now. It's being used by our enemies without and within. Satan is behind it all. Some people actually call it weapons of mass distraction. And that's part of what's happened the last 2 years. Not only more crises and protests and violence and chaos being stirred up by certain people who are scheming evil things, but massive distraction brings massive destruction. So this is a real issue, and it's a part of the spiritual warfare discussion that we started last week. All of this impinges on God's design. All of this undermines God's design. His design is for freedom. Human beings, individuals who are free before Him. He's the one who thought that up, to have free choice, free will, just as there was in Genesis in the garden. That's His design. And anything other than that is tyranny. Any other framework that does not have individual freedom and freedom of decision and choice over your own life, your own body, your own mind, is from Satan. Okay? Clearly stated right now. Satan is the one who enslaves. Satan is the one who tricks people and gets them into boxes. He gets them stuck in a place where he can control their thinking and attitude and all their information flow. And by that, with those inputs, he can get the output from their living he's looking for, which is all negative and destructive. So without going into more detail, that gives you an idea of what is at stake as we move ahead in this new year. We have to be totally alert, the way Peter, the Apostle Peter, says, to be alert, to be prayerful, have an alert mind, be ready for action, take action. You cannot just sit there and go along with all of this nonsense. You must be alert and take action. You must have discernment, as is talked about by all of the apostles, by Solomon, by Jesus Christ himself. Discernment and wisdom, understanding of the spiritual things. Otherwise, what is the point in following Jesus Christ and being a son of God? You're learning holiness from Him. And the first step toward holiness is discernment. You cannot be deceived and think you're going to become holy and like Jesus Christ. It's not going to happen. Very, very simple. I just want to mention a couple of interesting things. You're probably familiar with Viktor Frankel, the Holocaust survivor who actually was from Vienna and founded the third school of psychology, psychological thought, which he ended up calling logotherapy. But it has to do with this thing of free will and of the individual exerting control over their own mind and making choices, even in limited situations. And he got this from his own experiences at Auschwitz, a concentration camp during World War II. And he tells a story when he was going into Auschwitz that Dr. Mengele, who was a famous doctor and a mass murderer who devised human experimentation and did it as torture on adults and children throughout World War II. Dr. Mengele was the one pointing people to be in different lines in Auschwitz. And he pointed for Frankel to go into a certain line. And for some reason, Frankel said he doesn't know, he said only God knows why he made this decision and had courage, but he didn't go where Dr. Mengele pointed. He actually saw some people, colleagues of his, in the other line, and he got in the other line. And they didn't stop him. He was able to go through that line. And all the people in the first line were exterminated, were murdered, and the people in the line that he got into were not. You and I are having to make a decision right now in our lives about what line you're going to get into. You cannot just go along. They tell you to do something. They tell you to do something with your body. They tell you to do this or that. Even if they're medical professionals, scientists. Yeah, Dr. Mengele was too. You cannot just do what people tell you. You have to let God lead you and get you in the right line. You have to make a decision. And his decision was not to go along with what this mass murderer was indicating, but to do the opposite. And it saved his life. You and I need to do the opposite of what people are saying right now who call themselves experts. Otherwise, you are going to continue to be deceived and you're going to be harmed and your loved ones are going to be harmed. And the worst outcome is that it damages your soul. If you do not discern the truth about what is going on right now, it will damage your soul. So you and I have a lot at stake here. I want to just help you to get some additional awareness of what is going on without telling you all of the details. You need to figure it out. There are sources. I have tons of sources from all over the world if you want. And I'm talking with people every week all over the world, and they're telling me the reality of what's going on all over the world. It's a very interesting thing that the Apostle Paul teaches in Titus. In Titus chapter 2, he's talking about godliness, and in particular, he's making sure that you and I learn how to say no to ungodliness. Okay, this is Titus 2. No. Can you say no? Remember how Jesus Christ said to be clear about your no and your yes? This is one of the first lessons of Jesus Christ for his followers. The Apostle Paul is reinforcing it in Titus 2. You need to say no to ungodliness. Okay? Now, there are all kinds of evil things that are being perpetrated on innocent human beings right now that are ungodly. They're anti-God. They're anti-God's design. They're harming the human body and brain in a way that really is an affront to the designer, okay? To God himself, an affront. You do not undermine or harm the work and the design of the living God who holds all things, sustains all things in his hand, moment to moment. You have to know how to say no to the ungodliness of the world, all the nonsense of the world. Part of what's going on right now has to do with fear and anxiety, an anxiety state, which helps evil people to get what they want. And that is control over you. They want to manipulate so that they have more power and get more money. This is a very obvious thing that you can see in the world. You don't have to be an intellectual to figure this out. So this has everything to do with being focused on God, looking up. It has everything to do with you and I having devotion to God in action. If you think that you're devoted to Jesus Christ, but you're not saying no to the nonsense of the world constantly, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're thinking. The apostles teach differently. In order to practice godliness, you have to say no to the evil of the world. All the evil schemes, all the lying that goes on in the world. You have to say no. No. No, you listen to God over men. And this is what the apostles said over and over in Acts, talking about the establishment of the church. The apostles said this repeatedly, and they acted on it repeatedly. They were arrested and rearrested for speaking the truth. They were canceled over and over, but they said, no, we must obey God rather than man. Okay? This is the truth, because God is sovereign. Men are liars. They sin. They trick you. They try to take advantage. Only God can be fully trusted. And you must do this in an activated way in order, this devotion in action, in order for your faith to be real, to stay strong, to get you all the way to the end when you die or when Jesus Christ comes back. Okay, this is very important for you as a follower of Jesus Christ, anyone who is a follower of Jesus the Christ. Now, one last little word. You may have heard of a lady named Corrie ten Boom, and she was also in a concentration camp. She was Dutch. She put into a concentration camp and nearly died also. But one of the last things her sister said to her, before she never saw her again, was, "Look up. Look up." This needs to be resounding in your mind and your heart right now, before it's too late, before you get in the wrong line. You need to respond to what Jesus Christ said. You either serve God with all of your heart, or you will, by default, be serving Satan and going along with the world. They go together. Cannot be a friend of the world, James says, very clear. You and I need to get really, really clear about this right now in history. And just as Corrie ten Boom's sister encouraged her in that last interaction, I'm telling you one more time to look up. God bless you. Stay strong.